Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-673-1574. 800-673-1574. 800-673-1574. That's 800-673-1574.
The Santita Jackson Show.
There are other issues that all of these cases continue to unearth. The pay gap. Then you get credit call out of the blue. Who's like, wait, I'm trying to advocate for people who, for mere possession of marijuana, have been sitting in prison since the 90s. I can't even tell you, the black people whose lives have been wrecked, the Latinos who've been wrecked, poor people who've been wrecked because of possession.
The Santita Jackson Show. Weekday mornings at 6 on WCPT 820.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is often laced into illicit drugs and used to make fake versions of prescription pills. You can't see it, taste it, or smell it. Suppliers mix fentanyl into their products because it's potent and cheap, and the dealer might not even know. Keep yourself and others safe by knowing the real deal on fentanyl. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. The past few hours have been pretty tough in parts of the South.
Officials across the southern U.S. are reporting damaging hail, toppled trees, shredded buildings, and downed power lines after a powerful storm system passed through. Tens of thousands of households across Alabama and Georgia were without power overnight Wednesday. In Eufaula, Alabama, Mayor Jack Tibbs says no injuries were immediately reported, but the storm collapsed a wall of a building and downed 30 or 40 trees. Tibbs spoke to WTVM.
Hey, everybody. Luckily, we only know of one small injury, and I think it took a Band-Aid. So anytime you have a tornado, and that's all you have as far as injuries go, that's good.
Authorities in Troup County, Georgia told WSB-TV that a person was struck by lightning. In Calhoun County, Sheriff Josh Hilton says 2 people somehow escaped uninjured from a house that was demolished by high winds. I'm Jennifer King.
Last night, President Biden talked about the weather and climate change with conservation and environmental groups.
Over the past 2 years, a third of Americans have been personally affected by extreme weather events. 1/3. Folks, this is what climate change looks like. Only it looks worse if we don't do something now.
President Biden last night in Washington. A group of migrants arrived by bus in downtown Los Angeles yesterday, sent from Texas. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said the migrants were sent to Los Angeles because California had declared itself a sanctuary for immigrants. 2 Americans have been found dead in their hotel room in a seaside community on Mexico's Baja California peninsula. This was in the community of El Pescadero. No word yet on who they were or where they
We have Pastor Brooks on the line.
They died from gas inhalation. A convicted
Say hello to Pastor Brooks. Pastor Brooks, how are you?
He was convicted of 2 killings.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, honey, I need to get up on 6:20, okay?
Is now 62 years old.
Okay.
This is AP News.
All right. Sorry, I'm trying to pull a few more
Now to the
stories
Southern
down, but
Baptist
it's good hearing your
Convention and
voice.
women pastors.
Are you going to be
and the
are you performing next week at Mr. Lewis's
because
tribute?
it has women pastors. An appeal was rejected to bring back Saddleback Church in California. It had been the denomination's second largest.
Are you performing?
Yeah, I thought they were going to do jazz. Well, I will call you about it a little bit
Convention
later.
delegates also rejected a similar appeal by a smaller church, Fern Creek Baptist in Louisville, Kentucky, led by a woman, Reverend Linda Barnes Popham.
I think there are some deeds done in darkness.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what they
be
were
uncovered.
For years,
what they were doing,
questions
because
about
he didn't
women's
have a
ministry
funeral.
roles have caused turmoil in the SBC. Delegates
just so that
pushed
you
to
know,
amend the convention's constitution to specify Southern Baptist churches must affirm, appoint, or
Yes. I just heard it. Everyone sounds great.
Okay, thanks so much. And you. Yes, he needs to make sure that he can hear you.
This is 820.
We have 5 minutes, by the way.
Okay, thank you so much.
And streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk. Facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty showers and thunderstorms possible late today. Otherwise, partial sunshine develops, a high in the mid-80s. Areas of widespread haze at times. Winds turn northerly and increase around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. Tonight, partly cloudy skies develop, a low near 54. By Friday, sunshine, high of 73. Saturday, mostly sunny and a high around 80. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 62.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for the... And there they go! Almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car.
You know,
and there it goes.
this is a news show, so I'm always having
that mug was
to
a fan favorite.
Don't sweat the small
news
stuff. Just nail the big
stories,
stuff.
right?
Like making sure your kids are buckled correctly and eating for their age
So I
and
was
size.
trying to
Learn more
explain
at
that to someone
NHTSA.gov/the-right seat.
about, you know, how I'm able to schedule shows.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You know, there's some things I can
Has your
schedule in
gambling become a
advance, but
financial and emotional problem?
it's almost
Is your
inevitable
life
that things get
unmanageable and
knocked
you're starting
off
to lose hope that you can put an end to the madness?
because
You don't
of,
have to suffer alone. There is help.
because a news
The members
show
of Gamblers Anonymous
You know,
are ready
I'll
to
never
welcome and
forget
support you. We understand what you're going
then
through. We have
President
been where
Trump.
you are today. Please visit our website at www.gachicago.org
It
and
was
learn
about
more about how
10 or
your life
11 at
can
night
get
that you
better.
found out that he had
That's
COVID,
www.gachicago.org.
So, of course, that everything that I was doing, that threw the whole show over, you know?
On Sunday, May 29th at 7 p.m., Chicago
So I was up in the middle of the
Sweet
night,
Home
you know, having
Chicago,
to
a
redo the
concert
show.
culminating in the
I mean,
40th
that's
Pride
just
Bands Alliance Conference.
why,
Tickets are
you know,
available at
you-
Sweet Home Chicago 2022.org.
Real
Lakeside
late.
Pride welcomes 38 LGBTQ bands from the
So
United States and
anyway.
abroad to Chicago, where the
There are
organization
no-
started 40 years ago.
What do we have,
Hosted
about
by
3 minutes,
Denali
Henry?
Fox and Angeria Paris Van Michaels of RuPaul's Drag Race fame.
Hey, sister, I just stepped out of the room. What was that?
Premier
no worries. We have
compositions
about
along
3 minutes.
popular classics. Visit Chicago
Okay, this is what I need you to
2022.org
do.
to get
After
your
I finish
tickets
the
today.
headlines, put me on mute so because I'm still going to be downloading documents.
You know, you could
I
hit
don't
rewind
want
when
anyone
you
to
needed
hear.
to,
I want people
or
to hear
hit rewind.
The pastor
like
clearly.
that time you
okay?
knocked down.
Okay, we'll do. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Or that time you forgot to roll up your windows in the car wash.
Fantastic.
Yeah, a remote control would have come in handy then. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes like managing your weight, getting active, stopping smoking, and eating healthier, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. It's easy to learn your risk. Take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Life doesn't come with a remote control. So you're on your own with the wasps. You have the power to take control of prediabetes. Visit doihaveprediabetes.org today. That's doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
This is Dr. Anna Pellick from Total Dentistry in Palatine and Streamwood.
2 minutes.
About
Okay,
empathy.
thank you.
Empathy plays a vital role in the dental profession. Everyday patients come into my clinic filled with anxiety. Sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's not. But I know it's there because I've experienced the same anxiety, either in another dentist's chair
Hey,
or
my
during a
morning
medical
stars,
procedure.
sending you all
Leaning
so
back
much
in the
love.
chair
I hope
with your
some of
mouth
you will
wide
be
open
at
and
the
bright lights
convention
beaming down on you.
July
can be very
15th through the
scary.
19th.
I train
We're gonna
everyone
have
of
a
my
really,
team to be
really good
sensitive,
time, and
gentle, and
I would love to
reassuring.
see you all
I
there.
remind them
Bye,
to
son.
recall a time when they were worried or
I'm gonna
anxious
have a
and how
birthday in
they
the
would
middle
like
of
to
that
be
convention.
comforted. A practitioner can be professionally trained
Hey,
with academic
Ari.
accolades.
How you
but if
doing?
they're unempathetic, they're not serving their patients.
let me tell you,
At
Ari,
Total
I am
Dentistry,
never
we give
offended
you what you need
when
to
a
feel
man
comfortable.
tells
More
me that he
explanation,
feels
more time to
that I'm
relax,
attractive.
medication, or just a
I'm not
kind
that
word,
girl.
because we've
I
all
love
been
it.
there. Total Dentistry, a general dental practice like
I
no
just
other.
want you to
Call
know
847-358-2577 or visit totaldentistry.org.
That is really, really flattering.
This is Ron
So
Whittingham, and I'm
thank you
co-owner
very,
of
very
Megan
sweet.
Financial, an independent
Very,
retirement
very
and financial
sweet.
services firm here in Chicago.
Very,
we built
very
our
sweet.
business
Thank
on playing
you
the long
so
game,
much.
teaching financial literacy to our clients to prepare them for a great,
a little bit less than a minute,
dignified
Okay,
retirement.
thank you.
Investments, pensions, 401ks, they're all pretty complicated. We make sure that you understand it all. Give us a call at 708-444-1090. We're Megan Financial, and we're your partners in a happy retirement. Or visit us at megent.com.
Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors LLC, member of FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and a registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any
Carol
other
from New York City, how you doing? Where are you in Brazil? Let me know where you are in Brazil. I've spent some time there, and I think I'm going to be coming back
all information is
fairly soon.
reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to
Which would be a joy, because I love Brazil.
Risk
Love it.
Investment decisions should be based upon individual's own goal, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Consult your investment and/or tax professional regarding your unique situation.
Alexa, play WCPT.
Stand by.
WCPT. Ari, let me know where you are in Brazil. Are you in Sao Paulo? Are you in one of the...
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world.
Let's get right to it, everybody.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome. Get a little bit of feedback here. Take care of that. Thursday, June 15th, 2023. It's a joy to be with you today. We've got a lot of things, a lot of ground we're going to cover today. You know, these are really uncertain economic times. And the Fed, continues to raise the rates. And now we're seeing more information that shows us that really at the heart of inflation are corporate profits. Corporate profiteering. That having been said, we're all having to deal with it. Corporations are just able to charge us more and more and more, and it's driving the price up of everything, and it means that we have less money. That having been said, at the core of America's wealth is home ownership. We're going to talk to you about how you can keep hold of your home. Team Hochberg will be on with us at the bottom of this hour. What do you do if you think you might be having some trouble meeting that mortgage? What do you do if you are facing foreclosure? What do you do? We're talking about home ownership at the bottom of the hour. At the top of the hour, what are the issues for election 2024? As we look at the Trump indictment and what all of that means, because constitutionally it means a lot. We also have education. That's a driver. We also have the economy. That's a driver of the election. I promise you, if people felt more comfortable economically, if we felt more financially secure, you wouldn't have all of this social unrest. So we'll be talking about the issues that you think might be obscured by this moment as we are focusing on the Trump indictment and the eventual Trump trial. And then, of course, Dr. Max Wolf, brilliant economist that he is, will be tying all of that together for us with this economy. How I guess today it's all about the money, So call me at 773-763-9278. Many of us are still trying to react to or put our arms around this Trump indictment and all that it means. So I want you to call me, because it turns out that his lawyers tried to cut a deal some time ago, but he refused to do it. Got to talk about that, everybody. There is a lot going on with that case. So call me at 773-763-9278. I just want to know how you're feeling about it, what you're thinking about it. For those of you who are inclined to vote for him, do you think why are you inclined to vote for him? And for those of you who might even be looking at it out the corner of your eye, you can be anonymous on the radio. Some people admire his pluck. They're like, in an era in which we want people to take it to government, he's doing that. Well, it might not be my view, but I want to hear yours. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT 773-763-9278. You said, Ari, you're on your way to work? Sending you so much love down there in Brazil. There you go. You're in Sao Paulo. I sang down there some years ago. Love it down there. All right, everybody, let's get to the headlines. Did you know that America's top-selling beer is no longer an American beer? Modelo Especial, the popular Mexican beer, is now the number one beer in the United States. Around 45 million people in the United States are under threat of severe storms today. From the Central Plains to the southeast parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, and the Texas Panhandle are at moderate risk for severe storms. Level 4 or 5. That's not inconsequential, everybody. This comes after more than 135,000 people in the South were left without power Wednesday night as strong winds and severe tornadoes moved across the region. Are you would you be prepared if you woke up in the morning and nothing worked, no electricity worked? What would you do? Something for us to think about, everybody. Russian President Vladimir Putin admitted that his military is lacking high-precision ammunition and attack drones as Moscow continues its assault on Ukraine. Fox News sparked outrage for labeling President Joe Biden, get this everybody, a wannabe dictator, close quote, open quote, close quote, on a news banner that aired during its 8 p.m. hour. The on-screen text read, wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested, close quote. Wow, you can't make this stuff up. And now there's a watchdog group that is demanding that the Trump-appointed judge be recused from his case. At a minimum, they say Judge Cannon's prior history creates an unacceptable risk of an unavoidable appearance of bias in one of the most important proceedings in the United States history. So what do you think about that, everybody? If you have ties to a person whose case you're overseeing, should they be recused? Of course. But we see from the Supreme Court on down that that does not happen. With inflation down, economists are demanding that the Fed permanently halt the dangerous rate hiking. Indeed, rate hiking, everybody, drives up unemployment. And there's a report that shows, tragically, major pharmaceutical companies are profiting immensely from the second leading cause of death in the United States by saddling cancer patients with tens of thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket costs. That is, they are price gouging cancer patients. Oh, you can't make this up. It's cloudy in Chicago, but we're supposed to have a high of 80 degrees today. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 77 degrees, partly cloudy. In Major League Baseball, the Tigers will be facing the Twins. The Cubs were triumphant yesterday, 10-6 over the Pirates, and the White Sox were triumphant too, 8-4 over the Dodgers, everybody. In the WNBA, the Fever will be facing off against the Sky tonight at 7 p.m., and tomorrow night, the Lynx will be facing off against the Sparks. Our Major League Soccer teams in Chicago and in Minneapolis, St. Paul, are off. And those are the headlines. But we have got Pastor Darius Brooks, Grammy Award-winning producer, brilliant psalmist and producer. In fact, one of the last major recordings that Ramsey Lewis did, he tapped Darius Brooks to be on the project, one of his favorite artists. We're so glad we're going to be honoring him in Millennium Park on June 22nd. I'm honored to be able to perform there. Many of you have heard me talk about Mr. Lewis on a personal level because I grew up next door to him. His daughter, Dawn, was like a sister, a sister to me when we were growing up. We had so much fun. And we're just so glad that this brilliant artist dwelt among us. So let's get some good news. A pastor of Grace. We love it. We love it. We love it. Grace Central Church in Westchester, Illinois. You are giving away food before you give us the good news. How can we get some of this food? So many people need it. Pastor Brooks.
Absolutely. Grace Central Church, 1026 Queens Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, every Tuesday from 5 till 7 and every Wednesday from noon till 2. Grace Central Church is right off of 290 and Man High, right by Hillside. Y'all can come every week if you know somebody who needs food, please, with service. And I'm excited about serving. Again, that's Grace Central Church, 1026 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. That's by Hillside, Maywood. Listen, on the west side. It's right there, y'all. We're not out in some suburbs. We're literally closer to you than you think.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to register in advance, do you?
No, just come. When you get there, normally we do 8 different townships, but we turn no one away. When you come, we get your information just to know who we've served, to make sure everything we're doing is in order and decent, but we turn no one away. We serve 7 different townships: Maywood, Broadview, Forest Park, Stone Park, not Forest Park, 8 different townships right in the area. Okay. I'm excited about this word.
Okay, I love it.
So, Santita, listen, I'm excited of Matthew 24 and 10. Santita, when I study God's Word, it's for the whole picture. Often we go to the Word of God to get what we want. And he said, I think that you, so that the king can take it out. For those that, and
Mm-hmm. Mm. Absolutely. 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 Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Amen. Amen. Mm-hmm. Okay. You know what? That is beautiful, but unfortunately, everybody on my Facebook cannot hear you right now. So we have got to. Well, no, we're just going to keep on going. But no, no, no. That if you go to WCPT, and I want to make sure you all can hear me, and I'm going to try this. Let me know if you all can hear me now, but I'm going to let you go. Pastor Darius Brooks, Grace Central Community Church out in Westchester, Illinois. Get there, everybody. Get there about 10 o'clock on Sunday. 10:30 is when they begin. You will not regret it. You will be blessed. We've got Dr. Shanina Knighton. Dr. Shanina Knighton, today you wanted to talk to us about the places in our homes, you said that are the least clean. Will we be surprised by this information? And Morning Stars, let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear Dr. Knighton. Let me know. Let me know. Please let me know right now. Yes. Mm-hmm.
considered that one of the most contaminated areas. Something else, people don't clean the crevices that surround the sink. We have to remember that not only vegetables, juice, all kinds of things go down the sink. And when we don't clean those areas properly, that is bacteria and sometimes fungus that has the capability to be able to build up and to be able to make people sick. And so it's very important that not only are we washing the inside of the sink, we're also washing off the faucet every day. Because the water that's coming out of the faucet has to bypass germs if it's not clean. We ain't too Santita, so I'll stop at like maybe 5.
No, I just got I got a little toothbrush device to clean all the little things around my, okay.
That's so good. But the ice maker, okay? So the ice maker in people's houses is one of the most nastiest and contaminated things. If they look at the spout, and I encourage people to do this, just take like a damp white cloth and literally wipe around the spout of your ice maker where the ice comes out. I would also encourage you to see what's in there. People should also clean out, meaning wash and dry their ice tray. Do not assume that because your ice maker is still in the refrigerator all the time, that it's making clean ice. So it's important that you wash those two things out just to make sure that you're staying safe. The other thing is sponges, brushes, and dishcloths. So they can harbor a lot of germs in them, and we don't think about it. So similarly to how someone would change out their face cloth inside of their home, you should be changing out your sponges, brushes, and dishcloths because those two can become contaminated. I encourage people to actually soak them and make sure that they're thoroughly cleaned after each use.
So, I mean, soak them in what?
Then so you can soak them in with soap and water. You can do a disinfectant and then wash them out. So there's ways in order to be able to do so, but cleaning them is the most important thing.
Well, let me ask you then.
After they wash dishes and rinse them that they're clean.
Is it better then to use disposable towels? I mean, like 1 use, 2 use, and then that's it? One and done?
So it is, but economically, that might not be feasible for people. And the other thing of it is, too, if we're thinking about, let's say, saving the environment, the question then comes is, are they biodegradable or are they environmentally safe? So there's kind of like some drawbacks of being able to use the single-use towel.
Oh, wow. Wow. Robert Williams says, don't bleach. Work. I think you said we were taught to boil rags. Back in the day, our foreparents, that's what they did. I mean, they boiled. And I mean, my mother's mother was just the bleach queen. She bleached everything all the time. Yep. I mean, even just cleaning out the tub after 1 use, she bleached. She just, and that has stayed with me. I'm like, sometimes you have to burn candles so my home doesn't smell like bleach, but when I smell bleach, I feel clean. It's just a thing. Oh my gosh. Well,
I know.
Have you written that up? I mean, I know we have less than a minute, but really.
So I haven't, but I tell you, I'm actually working more into, let's say, a video space. Okay. And so when I say a video space, a space of the things that I'm describing, helping people to actually visually be able to see. Okay. And so within the next couple of months, our audience, even following my page at Hey Dr. Nina, will start to see me sitting there with the salad and how they put the condiments directly in my salad. I promise I won't call anybody out, but I'm going to just show people some of the most disgusting things that exist in order for them to understand. And trust me, it's the funniest thing, but even with my husband, when I'm talking to him and his coworkers, I'm actually going around Santita and I've wiped off their steering wheels in their cars. And
could you put your husband on Hey Dr. Nina? What? I mean,
I sure did. I sure did.
Is this her husband? Oh, you're like, now whatever, don't do this. I said, oh, she reminds me of my mother. Wow.
He He did. He said, "Don't be using me as a part of your video." Because I sure did. I'm like, you see how disgusting this is?
Oh,
and I said, and I
man.
gotta drive this car sometime.
You pulled a page
Yeah,
from the
I put him on
Jackie
the spot.
Jackson playbook. I said, oh, man. And my mother is the truth teller. He was like, don't you dare do that. It's the only person in the
Yep,
world
I sure did.
who keeps my father in check. I love it.
Yep, but look, that's steering wheel cleaner now. I tell you that.
Absolutely.
If you know I'm gonna get in and I'm gonna check it.
Because we haven't thought about those
I'm
things.
like,
but no, stay right there. Stay right there.
Stay
right there. I've got to cut to break, but I want you to talk to everybody on the Santita Jackson and Friends and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody, go to Hey Dr. Nina. Hey Dr. Nina. HEYDRNINA. You're going to get more of this, and she will show you how this ought to be done. Let's talk about saving our homes in just a few minutes. Dr. Knighton, please continue. So the steering wheel,
yes,
filthy, huh?
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So now he knows because I'm gonna check it regularly. He cleaned it because I'm like, I can't believe you eat French fries or any kind of food touching this thing. And you know how people be busy on the go and they eat their food in between meetings in a car. I'm like, I don't see how you could touch finger foods touching this too. So he gets it. He absolutely gets it. Because there's no point in cleaning your hands if the steering wheel is suspect.
Oh, wow. I mean, but you know how some people put these, what can you, I mean, you know, some people put these rubber devices around the steering wheel or other things like that.
They nasty.
Oh,
they nasty. Because the little protruding things that like help with the grip.
Yeah.
Germs get stuck in between those little things.
Oh my God.
Like they get stuck in between them and it makes it very hard to clean. So the best way to clean it would actually be for people to take it off and let it soak and then let it dry. Let it air dry.
Soak in what? Just soap and water and antibacterial? Or I mean, like what?
Soap and water. Soap and water works with a little bit of scrubbing. Trust me, soap and water can save a lot of stuff. And all you need is to have that friction. And so people don't, even if you got vinegar, you could make you some baking soda, you know, and some peroxide. There's a lot of home-based remedies that can be made to be able to alleviate that.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, Thank you. But you know, you need to go over that again. And you also need to talk to us about the parts of our bodies that we ignore too, Dr. Knight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, trust me, we will definitely get to that soon.
Oh, please. You know, because I mean, and this is not to call anybody out, everybody. This is just so that we can become healthy. You know, we found, well, you know, you want to be healthy. We found that, you know, the great transmitter of COVID, hands. Hands as clean. You know, it's airborne, yeah, but our hands, we were wearing masks, maybe not properly, but it's our hands. And, you know, the emergency is over. We've gotten away from some of our better, not best, but at least better practices. And we've got to keep those things in mind. And you know what? If anything, think of what your great grandmama or grandmama or big mama did. Because they stayed clean. They believed that cleanliness was next to godliness. And in their humble little homes, they were just as clean. They were clean. Dr. Knighton, I remember my mother's mother had before they moved years ago, they had their washing machine.
We're going to be back in 30 seconds. For some reason, the phone. Yes, the phones are acting up and he's not able to hear me, but I will be calling him and patching him through in just a moment.
Okay, no, do it right now, please.
Yes,
okay.
I'm just calling him from my cell phone to let him know.
Okay, no worries. Thanks. You know, I mean, but, you know, first of all, they air dried. They didn't use the dryer. She hung everything out on the line to dry. And she never really grew accustomed to the dryer because she felt that it was unclean. She said, how do you clean the
I'm about
washing
to come
machine?
back. I'm going to call him up. He'll be on in like just a moment.
Okay, please call him because I'm about to introduce him.
Will do.
Change the world, change the world. change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
More and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change.
I'm David Huckberg.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about saving our homes today. Indeed, I think today's show is about the money. We're going to have Dr. Maxwell Wolf on in the next hour looking at how the Trump indictment is impacting the economy and looking at the Fed and how they're impacting the economy. And we will be talking about the issues that go beyond this indictment that we need to be talking about. We are in the election cycle, everybody. Uppermost in your minds, well, the Trump indictment is important. That indictment is important and how it is carried out and what's driving it and all of that. But the economy is important. Education is important. Healthcare is important. As we see that, the pharmaceutical companies are gouging cancer patients just when we're most vulnerable. So let's think about that. But at the cornerstone of Americans' wealth is home ownership. And increasingly, more and more Americans are not buying their homes. And how is that impacting? How is that shaping us as a society? We still have a gap that was closing at one time, but now it is reopening. That is, home ownership is down in the Black community. Why? And what can we do to drive it back up? So we got a lot to talk about today with David Hochberg of Team Hochberg. Of course, he's part of the family on the show, and we want to talk with him about all manner of things. And we're going to be doing that regularly going forward as we see the headline, David Hochberg, people of color face major home buying challenges, but Asian American rates are reaching an all-time high, but they have been, in many respects, used as the super minority, right? And then if you buy a home, maybe everybody doesn't need to buy a home, David Hochberg, because there are hidden costs in home ownership. At least when you're renting, if something goes wrong, you call down to the rental office and that's taken care of. When you're the homeowner, you are the office. So what do you want us to know today with respect to Team Hochberg, which of course is, call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. They have got a tremendous program responding to the Fed. Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac have been really, really alarmed by the home ownership rates, which continue to go down. Last year, they were down to 26%, and the year before, 34%, and they've been higher. But now more and more Americans are not buying homes. What's going on? But now if you're a first-time home buyer, that is to say, if you have not owned a home in the past 3 years, really during this emergency, this COVID emergency, you now have an opportunity to own a home. If your family income does not exceed $105,700, which, that's might sound like a lot, but it really, really isn't in this economy. You should call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. If you are a first-time home buyer, that is to say, if you have not owned a home in the past 3 years, so that you can find out if you can take advantage of this program from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're substantially lower rates. These rates can change at any time. You know that. So while the rates are low, you need to call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID. And if you have any other questions about home ownership, about trying to avoid foreclosure, if you think you're about to have a problem, well, they can answer your questions and they can also help you. So I want you to call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID or visit them at 56david.com and let's talk about home ownership and look at doing something for you, but for your children and their children. Homeowners beget homeowners beget homeowners. That is to say, if you're a homeowner, if your parents are homeowners, more than likely you will be. And if you're one, your children will be, and on and on and on and on. So let us take advantage of these low interest rates while they are here. They can change at any time. David Hochberg, welcome back to the show. It's a joy to be with you. What do you want to talk about today?
I just want to expand, and thank you for having me this morning. I just want to expand on what you just mentioned about the first-time home buyer is somebody in the federal government's eyes who hasn't owned a home in the past 3 years. And it could be if you're going through a divorce, if you had a boyfriend or girlfriend, if you had a home but you're now getting married or engaged to or buying a home with somebody who hasn't owned a home in the past 3 years. That's still considered, and you're still open to those first-time homebuyer benefits. So it's as long as you meet the income requirement. So a perfect example, I was talking to a young lady yesterday, right? She's a first-time homebuyer, has never owned a home, been renting for the past 7-8 years. Her boyfriend got out of a divorce finally. It was finalized after a long, drawn-out process of 2-3 years. They want to move in together, buy another house now that the divorce is final. He technically is still on the old mortgage of his previous home with his now ex-wife, and he's owned a home. But his new girlfriend has not owned a home that he's buying a home with. They are considered first-time home buyers because she has not owned a home in the past 3 years, and they both make in the high 40s, so they meet the income levels, the average median income in Cook County. So that's just another example of where our listeners might be able to benefit from this type of program that thought they wouldn't because they didn't know that little trick of the trade.
Well, hold
so that's
on.
just what I wanted to expand on.
Well, let me ask you about something else. Total household income. Many of us live multi-generationally. Your grandmother, your grandfather, an aunt, an uncle, another relative, and together you all have a home. Most of us are not. Increasing numbers of us are not able to afford a home by ourselves as single dwellers or as married or cohabitating people, and we bring other people in. Does that account for total household income, or is it just a couple that you're looking at, or a single person?
That's a great question, and I'll give the lawyerly answer. It depends. So if you're going for a Fannie Mae Freddie Mac loan, it's just the two borrowers or 2 or 3 borrowers, whoever is on the actual mortgage. That's the income that's calculated. If you're going to try to secure a IDA loan, Illinois Housing Development Authority, IHDA.org, your listeners could go check out more information. Those programs count every breathing person who's earning income that resides under that roof. So like you just said, if your parents or grandparents are living with you and they get Social Security, a pension, or taking a 401k distribution, that income is counted. Your income is counted as the primary wage earners, right? No matter what you do. And then here's the other crazy thing as well. If your kids are working at McDonald's or in the mall or got some type of job because they're in their teens and they're making $12 to $18 an hour, that income is counted in as well. So it depends on the program. So under the program that I mentioned in the commercial that you previously read, it does not count. It's just the borrower or borrowers, the sum of the income. And the average median income now in Cook County, I've got to update that commercial, was just released. It's increased to $109,000. Mm-hmm. So I know it's only another $3,700, but $3,700 is a lot of money, and it gets a lot of people that are listening right now under the umbrella and to qualify for that program. So I hope that answered your questions. IDA.gov is where our listeners could go to get more information about the Illinois Housing Development Authority program. And also, when I was on last week, I mentioned the program that BMO Harris has for certain borrowers within certain areas due to the Community Reinvestment Act. Your listeners can look up CRA to see if they're in a CRA zone where nationally chartered banks have to put money back into the communities that are underserved. That's where the Community Reinvestment Act. So there's a ton of programs, and with that program, they offer down payment assistance and cover closing costs, and those closing costs could also go to cover first-year homeowners insurance premium. It could also cover your real estate attorney that you hire to represent you in the transaction. So you literally could get in with no money down if you qualify. It's an amazing program that a lot of listeners don't know anything about. And I'll be more than happy to connect them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, do you think it's wise to buy with no money down? I mean, because many people owning a home is really it's a complex process because there's like hidden costs, taxes. When I watch one of my favorite shows is My Lottery Dream Home on HGTV. I love the host. I think he's such a sweet man. And but the thing is, I said, okay, they just won $1 million, which after taxes is that chops it. And I hear them looking at the price of the house, but I was like, okay, did you find out about the taxes, the utilities? Okay, what if you need a new roof? I mean, all that stuff.
Those are all valid. And I'll tell you what, in order to secure the money and qualify for the fund, for the down payment and the closing costs, borrowers have to go through a homeowner's education class, which covers everything that you just mentioned. So is it a good idea to buy a home with no money down? I'll come back with this answer. The VA loan as a category enables, enables, God, I'm having a tough time talking this morning, enables veterans that qualify and have earned the right to secure a VA loan the opportunity to purchase a home with no money down. Those are the best performing loans per category out of the entire lending category. So no money down, as long as the borrower or borrowers understand the responsibility of owning a home and has the resources to cover a furnace or an air conditioner, because we do get hot here in the summertime. We do get cold here. We're in Chicago, right? So temperatures do peak and they go into valleys. And you should be aware that when a furnace goes out, it's now going to cost you between $5,000 and $7,000 for a furnace. Guess what? After 8 to 12 years or 15 years, depending upon the use, your water tank's going to have to be replaced, right? That could be between $500 and $1,200, depending upon where you're at and how big of a tank you want. Okay, so these are costs that go into home ownership, right? If you have got grass, you're either going to have to buy a lawnmower or hire a service company to come and cut your grass, right? So all of that comes into play. If you own a home in the snow, if it snows, you got to have shovels, you got to have a snow blower, and you got to have salt so you don't slip and break anything. Again, these are added costs of owning a home that you might not think about. So all of this is covered. And again, it goes back to, is it smart to buy a home with no money down? Sure. If somebody's going to finance 100% of the purchase price, take all the risk and give you access to funds for down payment and closing costs, and you understand all of the things that go into owning a home. Yearly insurance premium, right? You got to have coverage on your home in case of a fire, in case of a storm damage, in case of water damage of a pipe break. So that's what all of the training goes into. That's why we're having these conversations, because we're trying to encourage listeners who are ready and have gone through the right educational process to secure the funds for the down payment and closing costs to be in the most successful position they can be to own a home. And that's what it's all about. Learning about owning a home, finding out all the ins and outs. Because I use the car technique, right? When you're 15, 16 years old, we just don't give you a license, right? You've got to go through driver's training. You got to get hours behind the wheel. You got to get hours behind the wheel in the day and the night and the rain and good weather and bad weather. So you're ready when you're alone and you're driving that car in whatever conditions. It's safe for you and everybody around you to be successful. And that's what it's all about. We're just trying to get listeners in a position to be successful if they want to own a home.
Call us at 773-763-9278. But more than that, call David Hochberg and his team at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Because I know that people have all kinds of questions. I mean, and now that, as the Fed, has been hiking their interest rates, that drives up unemployment. And people are tenuously employed, or they're certainly afraid of being fired, or, the money is not stretching as far. And you bought a home. Okay. Sure. So what do you do? How do you know that you might be facing a challenge holding on to your home? And what should you do about it? Do we reach out to a team Hochberg and have you begin to negotiate with the bank? I mean, how does this work?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the ostrich technique of burying your head in the sand is not going to work. Okay, you know that your bank account's got $4.58 in it, okay, because of whatever hardship. And I'm not making light of it. I'm just using it as an example. You know you don't have enough money at the end of the day or at the end of the month to make the mortgage payment coming up. We're on the 15th day of the month. The mortgage payment's due today. Okay, it's a perfect example. You don't have the funds to pay it. Okay, well, you still have another 15, 16 days before the end of the month to get the payment in on time before it's considered late and your credit gets whacked. Okay, you are going to pay a late fee. So the first thing that you should do is, if you're having a prolonged period of time, you lost your job, okay, your partner that you're living with, your husband, your spouse, your partner, got cut back at work, okay, a family member got sick and you had to write a check to take care of your mom, your dad, your aunt, whatever it is. Okay, you blew a tire on these wonderful roads in Chicago and dented a rim, and it's going to cost you $1,500 to not only replace your tire and the rim, but get a front end alignment because the front end of your car is totally messed up.
Wait a minute,
okay,
or a medical or dental bill. People can't live with dental pain.
I was just going to get to that.
Right?
I was just going to get to that.
Yeah.
You're right. People, some listeners have an unexpected medical. One of my guys on my team, unfortunately lost his mom this past week, right? I was talking to him yesterday, right? Checking in with him every week. God bless, right? He's got, him and his sister have got thousands of dollars in burial costs that he wasn't expecting. Life happens, right? And again, I'm not making light of it, but life happens. Things pop up. So when those things happen unexpectedly, okay, he didn't expect to lose his mother this week, okay? Not only does he have the loss of a family member, he also has the expense of taking care of his mom and her memory, right? So what happens? You've got $4.58 in your bank account. Pick up the phone and call your servicer. Do not go into the witness protection program. You need to pick up the phone, call the 800 number that's on your mortgage statement, and say, I'm having a hardship, and let them know of your hardship and work through it. Yeah, I just talked to a lady from WCPT yesterday, wants to buy a home. She got divorced a year ago, right? Her husband, doing negotiations, stopped putting money into their joint account so she couldn't make the mortgage payment, right? I hear this all the time. So she has 2 late mortgage payments. What did she do? She immediately jumped into action, called the servicing company, explained the situation, right? The servicing company put her loan into forbearance, which means that they will accept the payment at a future date, stop the late mortgage payments from showing up, which has now put her into a position at the end of June. The 60-day late and the 90-day late will be a year old. She'll be in a position to buy a home again. If she did nothing in that example, I talked to this lady at 9 o'clock last night. If she did nothing, she'd have a 90-day late and a 120-day late, and that would be considered a foreclosure in the eyes of lenders, and she wouldn't be able to buy a home. Now we just have to wait another 15 days, get to July 1st, run her credit. She'll be a year removed from any late mortgage payments. She's got 720 credit scores. She makes $100 and some thousand a year. She doesn't qualify for the first time home buyer because she owned a home within the past 3 years, but she's in a position to buy a home because she acted, Santita. She acted. She contacted her servicer and said, hey, I need a little help. And in this day and age, right, what did we learn from 07 and 08 for all of our listeners that were around during that horrific event, right? The lenders learned they have to be more flexible to help the homeowners on the homes that they're servicing the loans who have good cause for hardships. Help them out, or else we're going to have another 08 through 10, and property values are going to drop 50%, and we're going to have blood in the streets of the real estate market. And nobody wants that. That is a horrific event that nobody wants. So you got to call, you got to be proactive and ask for help.
So what role does Team Hochberg play in all of this?
I am offering, the role that we play is we offer mortgages, right? If you need a down payment assistance program for the first-time home buyer in a CRA, my friends at BMO have a much stronger, more robust program than I do. Okay, so I'm not going to sit there and say, hey, use me when they've got an extra $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 available. No, I'm going to be like, hey, here's my friend Gerald Lewis over at BMO. Here's my friend, my banker friend Prav over at Pravit over at BMO Harris. Go to them, and I'll help. My goal is to educate listeners on the programs available so they can take advantage of the home ownership opportunities if they want to own a home, if they are in a position to own a home, and if they are in the mental state that home ownership is for them. Again, we have apartment buildings for a reason, because not everybody is made to own a home. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with living in an apartment. I lived in an apartment for 5 years out of college. I lived in an apartment for 15 years growing up when I was a kid with my parents. Okay, until my mom and dad had enough money to buy a home. Nothing wrong with owning an apartment. Nothing wrong with living in an apartment, I mean. But if you have the urge to build wealth through real estate, because that's still the number one way over the past 100 years, Santita, to build wealth is real estate. If you want to build wealth through real estate, I will help educate, I will help inform, and I will help position every single listener to be as successful as they possibly can be. I can't stop them from losing their job. I can't stop them from making bad decisions with gambling and alcohol and drugs. I can't, and these are all reasons for foreclosures and reasons why listeners get into precarious situations and lose their homes, right? I can't stop them from buying things that they don't need to survive. Okay. But I can get that. I could talk to them about all the pitfalls they need to avoid to stay away from these holes in the ground so they don't get swallowed up. And I could put them on a path and show them the successful things that they need to do, that the listeners need to do to be in the most successful position to own a home and build wealth through real estate, which is still the number one way to build wealth in this country over the past 100+ years. That's what it's all about.
Indeed, we're probably the only industrialized nation that allows you not only to buy your house, but to own land underneath it. Increasingly, that is becoming untrue, but you can still do that, everybody. And that's why, it's very, very important to at least consider it. It's a shocking statistic, David Hochberg, but only 15% of the world's population are landowners, which is why, being in the United States, and we're 4.5% of the world, that's why owning is so important. But if that's not what you do, perhaps you do work with people if they want to go from renting to home ownership. Yes? I've got about 30 seconds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And offer training to organizations to bring financial literacy and financial empowerment, right? That's what I like to call it. I will educate whoever wants to be educated. I'll teach whoever wants to be taught. I will help them understand the game of credit and why it is a game. And if you play it correctly, you'll be on the all-star team. If you don't play it correctly, you'll be in the minor leagues for the rest of your life trying to play catch-up. So I've been doing this 20 years. August 1st will be 23 years, Santita. I got the inside scoop on how to help our listeners build credit and be successful. I know you got to run into a break, and I appreciate you giving me all this time on your show this morning.
Well, you'll be back with us next Thursday, but I want to have Dynamo Dave speak to you during the break before we switch over to another topic, because he called in, and I want you to continue to call David Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Whatever questions you have about home ownership, if you're a renter and you want to be a homeowner, I guess if you need to go from being a homeowner to being a renter, because a lot of people have a lot of different financial situations, but I know you're an expert in this space and you're helping people not just own homes, but to become financially stable.
Absolutely.
That's right. And it's possible to be stabilized and to thrive even now. So David Hochberg, everybody, please call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Dynamo Dave, I'm going to get to you in just a hot second. We have had quite the week that we've never seen in the history of the Republic. We have a president who's been fingerprinted, who's been arrested, who's been federally indicted. And we're in an election cycle, everybody. That having been said, what are the other issues that we really need to be looking at? Everybody's looking at him, but what about education? What about living from payday to Monday? People are making money, but it's not stretching far. So let's talk about all of that. And then, of course, we'll be following all of that up with a discussion with Dr. Max Wolf and how this indictment is impacting the economy. And you, back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Henry, I want to bring up Dynamo Dave so he can speak, so he can ask a question of Mr. Hochberg very quickly.
All right, patch them through now.
Okay, Dynamo Dave? Dynamo Dave? Hey, sweetie, I only have a couple of minutes. I've got Mr. Hochberg on. He can speak to your question or comment.
Yes, and I don't know if you want to hear my comment real quick. Condominium living, it's a good way for people to be able to afford, a home. But I want potential buyers to be aware that association dues aren't really dues. They're not optional. They're assessments, at least here in Minnesota. And if you don't pay them, the homeowner association can foreclose on that person. I had a very good friend. She thought she could just not, she didn't like the property management company, she didn't like the caretaker. She thought she could just not pay her dues. Mm-hmm. And you foreclose her for citizens running.
Oh, keep talking. I'm
That's a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a major problem. I talked to a lady here in Illinois, lives in a $300,000 home, free and clear. Her parents bought her the home with her family, so her family could survive and have the bankruptcy, and she didn't pay the
Mark Hatcher and Darryl Jones are on the line.
They foreclosed on her. So I agree with you. You got to pay everything. And that's something we'll mention next week when I'm on. That the benefits and the risks of owning in a condo. So and one of them is you have to pay the association fees, or they can foreclose on you.
Well, you know what? Write that down, because we need to talk about the different ways to. What's the difference between a condo and a co-op? Right?
Yep. Condo co-op and planned unit development. We can talk about that next week. All the risks and rewards and the advantages and disadvantages of owning each. So consider it done. And my train is coming into the station, Santita and Domino Dave. I got to
run. Okay.
Take care, guys. Thank
Blessings to you. Dynamo Dave, sending you so much love, honey. It's always a joy to hear your voice. Attorney Fancher and Attorney Jones.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning.
Boy, what a week we've had, huh?
It's been interesting.
You cannot make this stuff up. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're right. It has been interesting. And I think it's going to get, as they say, as the fairy tale says, curiouser and curiouser. It will be interesting. I'm sorry. I'm looking for something that I need to find here. You all can talk amongst yourselves, but here we go. All right. Okay, so let me pull that over there. Okay, I got that. Okay, that. Okay, so we do that. Okay, but you all are doing well this morning?
Doing just fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Well, this will be a pretty quick segment, unless you want to stay with Dr. Wolf. We're going to continue to talk about the economy. I guess today has been a day to be talking about the money. People are really struggling out here. And, now I came across this study that shows that Big Pharma, shocker of all shockers, that they're gouging cancer patients. Yeah, they're just allowed to go unchecked. And this is just, I just think that this is awful. They can do whatever it is that they want to do. And then when you ask a question about the safety of their drugs, something's wrong with me. Yeah, y'all, I got a problem with all of that. I have a problem with that. I do. I really, really do. So, and I think we're gonna have to wise up here. Wise up, because what we're doing, what we're tolerating, is just crazy, and it's not helpful, and it's not healthful. So, everybody, it's a joy to be with. I'm glad to have you and Daryl with me today. Okay, Okay. And okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'm about ready to come up. How much time do we have, Henry? About a minute?
We have a little over a minute.
Okay, great. So, Mark,
Mark, is you based in Chicago?
Okay.
Also, the phone lines are kind of acting up, so I don't know if we're going to be able to get to callers. They're like getting disconnected a lot. So,
well, you know what? Give me their names, and then I can ask them to send their questions in. Okay.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, because that's been a problem all week. Not been able to get these calls through.
Yeah, I've been noticing that. I saw an email about it earlier, and then this morning myself, I've been like having a lot of issues trying to get David on and everything. So yeah, there's just something weird going on.
Okay, well, no, send that email and copy me on it, please.
We'll do.
Okay, send it to Matt. Let's find out let's get to the bottom of this.
Got about 30 seconds.
Okay. I'm wondering. You know, we've got a haze over Chicago, and they've not really talked about these Canadian wildfires and the impact that they've had on the Midwest. And it is hazy in Chicago. It's not, I mean, you can see that the sun is somewhere.
Stand by.
But it's hazy. And I think that, look, I'm going to take my mask out with me today. How about that? Oh, stand by, everybody.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, Thursday, June 15th. It is quite a day, and what a week it has been. We're going to be talking about election 2024. How will the Trump indictment impact election 2024? And maybe even more importantly, what are the under-the-radar issues that are being obscured by the corporate media's focus on this indictment? This indictment is important now. There's no question about that. That having been said, so is your money. So is your home foreclosure. So is you trying to stay in your home. So is you trying to keep your job. So unionization so that people can be paid fairly, and on and on and on and on it goes. So we've got to talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. We've had some issues with the phones this week, but keep calling, everybody. Keep calling. We're doing our best to get you on the air. 773-763-9278. You can meet my morning stars. Hey, Abraham, sending you so much love down there in Venezuela. And Ari in Brazil this morning, 773-763-9278. I want to hear from you. Meet me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. The Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody like and share the show. Please do it. Like and share the show right now, right now, right now. And then, of course, the Santita Jackson and Friends page, the Santita Jackson and Friends page here on Facebook. But go on over to YouTube. That is what they've been asking people to do. So let's get right to it, everybody. Severe weather. All around 45 million people in the United States are under threat of severe storms today, from the Central Plains to the southeast parts of Kansas. Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle are at moderate risk for severe storms, a level 4 or 5. That's not inconsequential, everybody, according to the Storm Production Center. This comes after more than 135,000 people in the South were left without power last night as strong winds and several tornadoes tore across the region. Russian President Putin admitted that his military is lacking high-precision ammunition and attack drones in Moscow as it continues its assault on Ukraine. Fox News sparked outrage for labeling President Joe Biden, quote, a wannabe dictator, close quote, on a news banner that aired during its 8 p.m. hour. The on-screen text read, quote, wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested, close quote. Wow. It aired after former President Donald Trump pleaded not guilty Tuesday to 37 federal counts related to his alleged mishandling of classified documents. Everybody, after receiving backlash, Fox Network acknowledged the banner was inappropriate and said it had taken steps to address the situation internally. There are warnings as the U.S. and Russia threaten to deploy depleted uranium weapons to Ukraine. That's not a good thing, everybody. There's a watchdog group that is demanding that the Trump-appointed judge be recused from the classified docs case. They say free speech for the people says, at a minimum, Judge Cannon's prior history creates an unacceptable risk of an unavoidable appearance of bias in one of the most important proceedings in America's history. With inflation down, economists are demanding the Fed permanently halt dangerous rate hiking. You do know that as you raise the rates, you also increase unemployment. And there is a report that shows that Big Pharma is price gouging cancer patients. Yeah, you heard it. They're gouging cancer patients. Everybody in Chicago, it is hazy, partly cloudy. 80 degrees will be the high. Minneapolis, St. Paul, and a haze has overtaken Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they are being impacted by the Canadian wildfires. I'm wondering if that's happening here in Chicago. Anyway, you're going to have a high of 77 degrees at AM 950 radio. Major League Baseball, the Tigers will be facing off against the Twins. The Cubs bested the Dodgers yesterday. The Pirates 10-6, and the White Sox bested the Dodgers 8-4 yesterday. Our soccer teams had time off, but the WNBA will be facing off tonight. The Sky will be facing off against the Fever. And tomorrow night, the Lynx will be facing off against the Sparks. Those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. We've got the brilliant attorney Mark Fancher. I urge you to get his book, The Negroes of Friends Village. The Negroes of Friends Village. He's a brilliant civil libertarian and civil rights lawyer. And of course, we've got one of someone who's on the front lines for the voting rights struggle, the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Daryl Jones. Well, talk to me. Attorney Mark Fancher, we have had quite a week. Wow. I mean, the president is arrested, fingerprinted, blah, blah, blah. Now, he's the first one to be arrested and fingerprinted. Yes, I'm about to say it. Boom. He's not the first who should have been arrested and fingerprinted, but he's the first one who's been arrested and fingerprinted. What do you make of that? And I mean, we're in an election cycle, and I'm wondering if the issues that impact us every day, just in terms of how we live and how we eat and how we stay in our homes, how we keep our rental units or houses, I'm wondering if that's getting lost. Attorney Mark Fancher.
Well, I think that they are, because yet again, Donald Trump has proven to be a major distraction. This country is never able to remain focused on the things that count, the things that matter. Whenever he walks out onto the stage, everybody seems to pay lots of attention to him, and they forget everything else. They somehow believe that he is the most important thing that's going on at the time, and he is increasingly irrelevant. And I think that we're all better served by ignoring this man. I'll have to be honest. It's on a personal gut level. It's somewhat satisfying to see him indicted and facing criminal jeopardy. But at the same time, I really don't care. If he's convicted, great. If he's acquitted, I really don't care, because intellectually I understand that he is, as I said before, irrelevant. What is relevant are the millions of people who still think that this man is worthy of their votes and worthy of their support and worthy of their attention. That's the problem. Donald Trump is getting up in years, and at some point age is going to overtake him, and he will not be the problem. But these millions of people who swear by him, who have become almost his cult, will still be with us, and they are the ones who really need some attention. And, I'm really at this point speaking to progressive, to revolutionary white people when I say this. That group is the only one that can actually do something about that. Last night, Van Jones made a comment or an observation that very often the Democratic Party in particular looks at this group and sort of brushes them aside, says that they are strange, that they're a cult, that they're irredeemable, that nothing can be done about them, that they're stupid. And when they do that, they increase the gulf. They increase the divide between anybody who can speak reason and speak sense to them and that group. And they may be irredeemable. I really sometimes think so. But the only people who have a shot at getting through to these people are people who look like them, because the reason for their confusion is rooted in race and racism and white supremacy. And so communities of color are not able to talk to these people and get through to them. And even if they could, I don't think that they should. I don't think that that's our responsibility. But progressive to revolutionary white people need to take up a task that they have put down for as long as there has been a movement. You know, from as far back as the 60s, there have been requests that, you know, progressive whites make a deliberate effort to work with white workers who are confused and who don't understand that their true alliances should be with the oppressed, with the poor, and with communities of color, and that they've been misled by demagogues. They've been taught that they have more connection, more affinity with elite groups, with white people who have more than they have. And they really need to be set straight on that. And I think that, you know, there has to be a concerted plan, a concerted strategy, and a real effort to organize these people with a certain amount of respect. Because the fact is that there are many people in their ranks who, you know, honestly just want somebody to talk to them and to be for them, to be their advocate. And they see that in Donald Trump. They know that he doesn't have much going on upstairs. They know that he's corrupt. They know that he's immoral and stands for everything that they're against. But by George, this man is for white people and nobody else is. Well, somebody needs to set them straight. And to set them straight, and, you know, I go beyond where Van Jones goes, where he is looking to the Democratic Party to try and enlist them as supporters of the Democratic Party. I think that they need to go beyond that and to explain to them the problems with the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party, and to get them on board with a political program and a political analysis which is revolutionary in content and in objective.
Attorney Darrell Jones, your thoughts? I mean, we've got this, you know, this incredible indictment. And like I said, it's not like he's the first person who should have been fingerprinted and arrested, but first president, shall I say, but he's the first. And that's going to have tremendous impact upon the body politic and just on Americans in 2024. But we've got education. I was reading a Politico report about all of these under the radar issues. I mean, you now have the governor of Wisconsin, former educator, the mayor of Chicago, the third largest city in the United States, the former educator. Education, public education in particular, is a real issue for us. The economy is a real issue for us. People cannot afford to go. Please, if you have a toothache, you just have to live with it, because you sure can't afford to go get your tooth fixed, and let alone medical issues. I mean, that's the prime driver of bankruptcies in the United States. Let's talk about Trump, but also talk about and what it means, but talk about the corporate media. This almost gives them an opportunity to go past what Americans really need to be looking at. Attorney Jones.
Yeah, no, Santita, I think you're right on point. You know, the one thing that, you know, people should not underestimate with regards to Americans is that, you know, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So while we concentrate on and pay attention to some degree, what's happening with former President Trump, of course, you got to pay some attention to it, because you just can't get away from it. As Mark was saying, it's just so saturated in the media and through, you know, all the social media as well as with regards to what's happening with them. So you really can't get away from that elephant that's in the room with regards to the prosecution of President Trump. But at the same time, you know, everyday folks know that they've got to, you know, get in their car, get on a bus, take transportation to get to work, and try to afford food to put on the table try to afford the gas and electric that just seems to be escalating, and all the other issues that are going on. We're also dealing with, when we come to education, we're talking about banned books, right? We have states that are banning books. Fortunately, Illinois, your Secretary of State there took a really progressive and strong stance against banning books, making it more difficult, and beginning on the cost side of it if you want to ban it. But these are the issues that everyday people are dealing with. They're dealing with the questions of, what's my kid's education going to be like? If parents are banning the books, are stopping my kids from learning African American history, if you're in the state of Florida, you have all of these other issues that are pressing, that are not, and I don't call the Trump issue theoretical, but I do say that the Trump issue is not one of those kitchen table issues where you're sitting down, you've got to make decisions, you're watching it impact your family's life directly. These are the things that that we need to be certain that we're concentrating on, because these are really the issues that everyday Americans are feeling and facing. It's not whether or not someone will be prosecuted for whether or not they've done something wrong. This is, can't I afford to feed my family? Can't I afford to have medical care for my family? Can I do those things that are necessary so that my child has a better future, a better opportunity to achieve that I've had? Am I leaving them in a better place? And all of those things, I think, start touching on the educational sides of it, the banned book sides of it, starts talking, addressing all of those issues that are always there that are not being lifted up right now because, as Mark said, the air is being sucked out of the room because of former President Trump. So, it's a major, major issue, Santita.
Call us at Continue to call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Everybody, Mark, where are we going to go from here? Because we are, whether or not we're going to, well, let me back up. Are we going to have a speedy trial? Or is this a case that will get caught up in the court system?
It's the only approach. It's the only defense, if you want to call it that Trump has, which is to delay this thing, to draw it out as long as he can. And courts generally are slow anyway. Even when the parties are not necessarily trying to delay things. So he certainly wants to draw this out. He doesn't have a factual or a legal defense. Nothing substantive. So the only thing that they can do is to push this out as far as they can so that they can get as deep into the election season as possible, without him actually being convicted or something. But in terms of where we go, I think that, if we are clear on what the objective is, then it makes it really pretty clear. And I think, Daryl mentioned the issue of banned books and the attack on critical race theory in schools and all of that kind of thing. See, there's a relationship between those kinds of bread and butter issues and what I was speaking about earlier in terms of the confusion of white workers. The whole reason that they want to ban books, the whole reason that they want to eliminate what they call critical race theory from the curriculum is related to their control and domination and manipulation of that segment of the population. They know that they can only control these people if they remain ignorant about the true history of this country, the true racial realities of this country. And it makes it easier when they're ignorant. It makes it easier when they're misinformed, to manipulate them and to direct them, if they choose to use the type of demagoguery that Trump has used. And so you can't go to a white worker and tell him, really what you should do is you should oppose these people coming across the border. You should oppose affirmative action. You should oppose these things if they have a clear understanding that their circumstances as workers are such that they have historically been oppressed and exploited, that strategically and politically it makes more sense for them to throw in with communities that have been excluded, including communities of color, and that their true enemies are the corporate establishment, the corporate leaders and the elite families and those who they revere. And so as long as they're confused, then it's easier to exploit them. So I think that if what we're trying to do is to try and address some of these bread and butter, nuts and bolts kinds of issues, it all comes back to who is able within the population to make a difference on these issues, and it always comes back to the white workers. The people in power have always focused lots of attention on them. Those who are progressive, those on the left, they have neglected and ignored these people, and as a result, people on the left, progressive people, they lose all the time because they don't pay attention to the segment of the population that's most critical to U.S. politics.
Mark Fancher, everybody. Of course, you've got to get his book, The Negroes of Friends Village. The Negroes of Friends Village. Got a couple more minutes here before we go to break and bring on Dr. Max Wolf to talk about the economy and, I guess, the impact of the Trump indictment on the economy and the Fed. There's just so much, and no one, Attorney Jones, wants to look at the role that corporate America is having on the economy. That is inflation. All the studies show that they're driving inflation because they are able to make profits unchecked. They have no guardrails, and it is killing Americans. Just smashing us to bits in terms of our pocketbooks. Do you think that Americans are going to begin to ask those questions in 2024, Attorney Jones?
I don't think that Americans are going to begin to ask those questions in 2024, unless there is a concentrated effort to raise the issue. We have a tendency to accept whatever is being thrown out in the media as what we should be focusing on. And if the media is throwing out that we should be focusing on, the 2024 election and focusing on President Trump, focusing on other issues other than the corporatocracy that's going on and the gouging that's going on, then that's where Americans are going to focus. The whole issue is, the whole question becomes, what is being raised? Because, it sort of ties in what Mark was saying and I was saying with regards to the banned books, that if you don't know what the issues are, if you don't know the past, you know how it's gotten to where it is, you're not going to raise the chances are you're not going to raise the issue as to what's happening. So, when we're talking about, will we focus on the corporate gouging? Well, Americans will focus on the corporate gouging when the eyes of the televisions turn to corporate gouging and says this is an issue. If it's written in a periodical, some Americans will see it. But for the most part, it's got to be something that's raised and presented to Americans in such a way that it's easily accessible, easily digestible, quickly understandable, and with the understanding of what we need to do about it. And the last piece I wanted to put on, Santita, if I may, with regards to the Trump trial and how long it's going to take, I would expect it to really be attenuated, drawn out greatly. You have an inexperienced criminal judge and Judge Cannon. So, she's going to be trying to seek her way around, trying to figure out her way around the courtroom, the criminal courtroom in particular. So that's going to carry on, and that's going to really dominate the airwaves. And, so when you're trying to get across other issues of the gouging and things like that, those are the things that are going to be competing for that space.
Call us at Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. That's why we here in independent media need your support, because you get a chance to hear people like Attorney Mark Fancher, Attorney Daryl Jones, people whose opinions matter. They come from different perspectives, but they're closer to where you are. They're closer to where you are. They're talking about the issues that directly impact you. They're not taking talking points from anyone. They are looking at our lived experiences and they convey them to you. So let's talk. I'm going to bring on Dr. Max Wolf so we can talk about, I guess, the Trump indictment. Everybody wants to talk about that. Everybody wants to talk about inflation. What is the connection here, everybody? As we see the studies that show that corporations are gouging Americans. They're gouging Americans and they're making money hand over fist. We are seeing big pharma attorneys Jones and Fancher. When people have cancer, they're price gouging cancer patients. Mark, Daryl, who does that? Who does that? And more than that, why are they getting away with it? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. July 15th to the 19th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. You need to be there. Please, because we need to have these conversations in person. Don't you think? I have to go over the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Oh, you all, this is a lot. Because as I looked at it, I was like, corporations, they're not getting checked. They're just able to do whatever it is that they want to do.
That's because they run everything.
Everything.
Including the Supreme Court.
Well, this is the most business-friendly Supreme Court. Oh, please. They've been corrupt. You know it. It's just now we're talking about it. And we shouldn't be shocked by any of this, Daryl. I mean, but now, look, to show you our level of crazy, we're defending the FBI as if they've been fair dealers. I mean, they're the ones, they track peace activists now, Black activists now. They raid your home. But have you heard of them raiding the home of a supremacist, a white supremacist? No. I'll make it quick for you. They don't do that. And I'm not saying that they're not good people in the FBI. I didn't say that. But I'm telling you, historically, this is what they've done. They have been the political police of the United States. And we just need and don't lose that because we've had a Black president or because we have a Democrat in the White House. Democrats aren't your friends; they are a party. That's all. I brought up yesterday, Attorney Jones and Attorney Fancher. As a little girl, and you might remember this, Robert Strauss, a huge political operative and businessman, became chairman of the Republican and Democratic parties. See, you don't need to get over yourselves with this whole party thing. I mean, I am a registered Democrat because in Illinois, I would not have been able to vote for my brother if I had not been registered as a Democrat. Because in order to vote in the primary, you have to be registered to a party. Okay, I'll do that. And I'm more inclined toward, at least rhetorically, to where Democrats are. But in practice, hello, help me. Support me.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
We have Dr. Wolf on the line, so we have 2 minutes in the break.
Dr. Wolf, how are you?
Good.
I'm so glad to hear your voice. We have Attorney Mark Fancher and, of course, Attorney Daryl Jones with us. But so, do you want to talk about inflation? Do you want to talk? I haven't heard you talk about the indictment.
No, I haven't. I don't want people to think I'm getting my talking points from wannabe dictator Joe Biden.
Can you believe Fox did that?
He framed Donald Trump by making him being a stupid, entitled criminal for 76 years. What a frame job.
Oh, gosh.
All the way back to the cradle. That's deep state right there.
Oh, my gosh. I can't believe they did that. Yeah, I can. But look, Jake Tapper killed the feed to Donald Trump walking through the Versailles restaurant in Miami. I'm offended by that, too. That was not his call. His job is to report the news to me. Let me make my decision. He is not my leader. Yeah, I'm sick of them all. I'm tired of all of them.
I think you got to be really careful with that, though, because that conversation makes sense, but it creates a false equivalence to get these people elected.
Back in 30 seconds.
No, it doesn't. I've been watching corporate media all my life, and I see the games that they play. We got to the Democratic Convention in 1992, Max. Senator Bill Bradley walked up to Reverend at Madison Square Garden and apologized to him. You know why he apologized to him? Because the New York Times had already written about Reverend's speech before he'd given it. And they said people were not enthusiastic. I've seen them lie all my life. No. It's not even a false equivalence. They're all in it. They helped to set the climate for Dr. King's murder. They did. Because they took planted stories from the government. They lie. And we need to call them out on it, period.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world.
No, stand by. You can
change the world.
You can disagree with me on the air.
Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am dreaming.
Hey everybody, it's Thursday. You know what time it is on the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station and the voice of progressive Minnesota. I've got to get Gary Hines from Sounds of Blackness on here on Monday, Juneteenth. We're going to use some of his music. The Sounds of Blackness, the Grammy Award-winning iconic group. They have a new single coming out to celebrate Juneteenth. But of course, we have got attorney Mark Fancher, who's still with us. We've got attorney Daryl Jones, who's still with us, as they welcome Dr. Maxwell to the show on his segment. We've been going back and forth about just about this Trump indictment. Let me know what you see. What do you see? I mean, and you're an economist. But as an American, as a person, as someone who's conscious, who's woke. Oops. Can I say that about you? Okay.
I don't mind. I'm pretty sure no one knows what it means, but I don't mind the benefit.
I just have to make sure. But well, talk to me. What was your reaction to this? Since the
By the way, on the woke front,
yes,
since I'm not sure what it means, and I feel like if you ask 5 smart people, you get 5 really smart, totally viable, and totally different answers. But I do think it's much preferable, in my mind, to asleep, which seems to be the opposite moniker. So yeah, I'd rather be awake, all things being equal, intellectually, than the alternative, vegetative, or whatever the correct word is. So sure, in no way offended. I'm actually fairly hard to offend. But I have no problem with that. Look, I think it's sort of, to me, it felt like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Right? So however many problems there are in our justice system, and possibly even with some of these indictments, it is really important just for the society to be able to function, that we don't send a clear signal that wealthy, entitled people can do things that less wealthy, less entitled, and less white people would be brutalized, shot, or incarcerated for. But that is kind of a basic minimum for social function. So I do think that one of the charms for many of the Donald, right, in his various forms, all his career, has been that he is an out-and-out criminal, flagrantly violating the laws, and he profoundly believes that they don't apply to him. And whether we want to be comfortable with it or not, he's largely been right, which is how he's a 76-year-old guy surprised that one of the possibly least illegal things he did while he was the president could get him in trouble. Or why he and his followers believe that if he had classified documents in his bathroom at a public club, they must have been declassified by him, whether or not he can do that, or he must have been framed, or, my favorite, all of the above. They're actually fine to have there, and he was framed for having the documents, which are fine to have there. So, look, I do think it's important for any society, any time to function, that people see some kind of application of the law, even to the people who believe themselves to be above it. True if they're a Democrat, true if they're a Republican, true if they're left, right, center. If there is a perception that the law is for some people, not others, we basically begin to go toward a kind of lawlessness, right? And we have taken more than a few steps in that direction. So I think there's a value there. But as is often the case, we're kind of doing the floss toward justice here. So 1 step forward, 1 step back. And so we also see that one of the 2 major political parties, and most of its stalwarts, feel the need to proclaim that the indictment is not okay before reading it. It's amazing. The powers of ESP, I guess, are widely distributed out there. And then also, this notion that it couldn't be true because this is our candidate. And that sort of becomes this weird battle about, is this person above the law? And I understand if you like Donald Trump and you think he's either allowed to do stuff because he's Donald Trump or being framed, and I know a lot of people think that, including some very, very reasonable, smart people, then all this does look like a witch hunt, right? But if you're constantly being arrested, one of 2 things is always true, right? Either you're a criminal or there's a real effort to frame you. And I think the problem is most of us know which side of that divide we're on, whether it's frame or criminal. And so none of these things seem to kind of move the needle that much, right? And then I think the best thing that happened to Donald Trump, maybe in all this, is his people got to frame the choice between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. And I don't know what you couldn't get better writing than that.
Well, So where do we go from here? I mean, because now, I mean, we're in the middle of the election. I mean, we're at the beginning of the 2024 election. And Americans are facing massive, massive problems, I mean, and I think that Attorney Jones and Attorney Fauci would agree. The money that we make is not enough for us to make it on. Now we're seeing that the student loan debt that the president was trying to mitigate, well, the corporate controlled courts are not going to allow that to go forward. I mean, we have some real issues, and mind you, constitutionally, to me, this is a real issue, what's happening with Donald Trump, and what should have happened to some other presidents, but there we go. Okay, I get it. He's the one who's on the back.
Politicians.
Well, no, I mean, no, when I look at someone who's responsible for getting 1 million Iraqis killed, and no one wants to talk about it, and there are many places in the world that President George W. Bush cannot go, and us lying before the United Nations, we act as if the first time we've seen this kind of malfeasance and bad behavior, and really behavior that gets people killed, that this is the first time we've seen it. That's offensive to me, because it's like we've thrown all of our history out the window. I mean, where do we go? Because so many other issues, bread and butter issues, Dr. Wolf, are being obscured. They're being covered up now.
Yeah, well, look, I do also think we're fortunate to have much more, sage voices on this than myself, actual attorneys. But I do think that we are in a sort of crisis of the law of a pretty epic variety here, between the Supreme Court that's sort of off on an activist kick, most of the Republican Party that seems out of step with packed courts, because there's going to be a story of who put who on the court to hear that case around these indictments too, with the likely judge in the case. So we're in a moment here where our judicial system doesn't represent us and doesn't deal with our real problems, where our legislative system doesn't represent us and doesn't deal with our real problems, and our executive branch often doesn't represent us and doesn't deal with our real problems. And so obviously that means everybody's kind of not on the job when we need them. And we have a climate that's really spinning out of control here with the wildfires and the hail and the 100-year storm every 9 months, which has become a sort of mainstay here, or the employment issues or the student loan issues. And then, not to be harping on this, but an increasingly dysfunctional and expensive healthcare system poised to throw tens of millions of people off of the Medicaid, which is their only access to medicine, led by the usual suspects who are most gleeful to deny the poor benefits, but to be followed by many others, right? So we're seeing that all around the country too. So I think the problem is sort of we have a political system designed to ameliorate the shortcomings of our economy that seems to be accentuating them, right? So this is obviously not an ideal outcome. And I think it occurs in an incredibly competitive world where fixing our problems and functioning better at home is a matter of economic survival as well as social justice. And I think the people who are focused on social justice often don't notice the economic survival, and the people who are focused on the economic survival often don't notice the social justice issues.
Call us at 773-763-9278. Let's talk with you, and let's talk with Dr. Wolf. Let me hear from you. Ken, what's on your mind today?
Ken is no longer here.
Oh, okay. Is Jeff there?
Hi, this is Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Santita. I love your show, and I love the way it always gets me thinking before I get where I'm going in the morning.
Oh, really? Well, before you make your comment, what do you mean by that?
Sure. I like the perspectives you bring to the show. I like the perspectives you bring into these issues that are not these talking bobblehead commentary that you're seeing on the mass media, or even a lot of the left wing, like YouTube and left wing influencers. I feel like there's somewhat of an echo chamber forming there, and I'm hearing the same ideas and the same thoughts just being kind of reverberated and amplified and passed around with very little extra information being added or extra perspective. So I appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate that you appreciate that, because we don't want to bring talking points here. I mean, what my brother Jonathan said of Congressman Jackson said of Dr. Wolf, he said his casual thoughts are absolutely brilliant. Just the things he just takes for granted, what he throws away is brilliant. I would say that about attorney Daryl Jones. Brilliant. Attorney Mark Fancher. Brilliant. Don't let Mark Fancher go on a tear. Are you still there, Mark Fancher?
I'm debating whether to leave.
Don't leave me.
That's honest.
But then no, they're brilliant. And, in corporate media, you don't hear these people. And it's just, I think it's a shame. But, but you called in with a comment or a question, and please go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to strike while the iron's hot while you have some legal expertise on the phone right now. I've heard an inkling that these legal defense funds, like how Trump is raising money for his various defenses and all these cases that are coming down against him. I've heard these legal defense funds are very poorly regulated, and there's very little transparency into where the money is, and it's almost another form of dark money coming into the political process because they can use those funds as almost a slush fund to do all sorts of other things. And I was curious, if I write a check for $1 to Trump's legal defense fund, does that give me legal standing to then sue them to get some transparency as to who the money is coming from and where the money is going from one of those funds?
Now, that's rich because, Reverend Jackson years ago started, he had the organization buy stock in American companies so that they could go to stockholders meetings and then ask questions and have say, in policies of these corporations. But stay right there. Don't leave. Attorney Jones, Attorney Fancher, but why don't you both take a crack at that? First, you, Attorney Fancher.
Well, yeah, don't quote me on this because I don't know for certain. But if the funds are being raised for legal defense, I don't know that there's any oversight or any regulations that guide that. I mean, if any one of us decided to, we found ourselves the target of some type of prosecution, and we wanted to set up a GoFundMe page, or we wanted to somehow start a defense fund to raise funds to finance our defense. I don't know that anybody gets to look at that or have a say in how that happens. I mean, these are people who are coming to the assistance and to the aid of someone they care about, and they're just contributing to pay their legal fees and their legal expenses. So I don't think that there's anything there. I mean, that's quite different from if you have a fund that's been set up to finance a political campaign or something like that, and that is regulated and that is overseen. But just for legal defense, I don't think so. I don't think that there's any transparency that's required there.
Well, Attorney Jones, Anita, and of course, Dr. Wolf, you can weigh in on that too. But Attorney Jones, your thoughts?
Well, no, I'm right there with Mark. I can tell you that, when those funds are raised, whatever the source is, if you're raising funds for a legal defense, that certainly the attorney is not going to disclose the source of the funds that have been received to pay for the client's defense. And I don't know of any entity that's going to be collecting that information and be compelled to turn over that information. If you're getting money to someone's criminal defense fund, you're getting them the money. You're not asking who else is contributing. You're just contributing yourself, and you don't become entitled to know who else has contributed. Not at all.
Dr. Wolf, do you know anything about this? I mean, because you work with these campaigns. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff, were you jumping in? Go on, please. Jeff?
I just my posit was that I feel like Trump's entire political run has been financed by these shady funding sources, with all this dark money that we've allowed into our political process. He's not being funded by the moms and dads and the random common folk that show up at his rallies by $5 and $10 checks. He's being funded by the Koch brothers and these large right-wing foundations that want to kind of overturn the political process, and even potentially, as I think they showed in, maybe that was 2020, where they were getting money funneled through the NRA via Russia into our political process. And I feel like these legal defense funds are just another opportunity for him to have a dip at some unregulated money that he can pass around, because we know the guy's broke. He's in debt personally, and he's using much of this to fund his lifestyle and fund, the the level of comfort and travel and luxury that he's become accustomed to, and pay his bills that way.
But that's politics. If you look at many of, particularly those in the Senate, they don't make a lot of money, and yet extremely well. Like, I don't know how you live on the state and you make a U.S. senator's salary. You have to live between Washington, D.C., which is one of the most expensive cities on earth, and then you're home. I don't get it. So I'm just saying, don't start with him.
Oh no. But he's symptomatic of a larger problem for sure.
Yeah, I guess
I resent that.
I want us to
that's
stay
why
there.
We're here.
Because I think we need to get to the rot in the system. I mean, because we're looking at Clarence Thomas and we're not looking at the Chief Justice's wife, right? I mean, it's like, y'all, hold on. We got a mess here. It's a mess. So now,
I mean, I think these guys are just entrepreneurs. So Donald has that document storage business in his bathroom at Mar-a-Lago, and it looks like Clarence Thomas and Jimmy are pretty. Yeah, they should be. And Jim charged the Secret Service a lot of money to stay in those crappy hotel rooms. Why not the documents? And then I also think Clarence Thomas is a real estate entrepreneur. So is his mom. I don't know why you guys hate success so much, but I admire it.
Did you talk about his mama? What?
That's a shock. But his mom also had very fortuitous real estate dealing.
Oh my God!
And she's obviously got a good eye for dusty rural rental getaways for billionaires.
Oh my gosh! I mean, did that help you at all, Jeff? I mean, I think we have to look at the rot in the system, Jeff. That's one of the gifts of this moment.
Yeah. I love the idea of follow the money because it often tells you a lot, but I hate the idea of these instances where there's no way to follow the money. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, who knows what's happening there, and it's kind of a black box. But I do appreciate the legal perspective from your guys. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, something I would not have known otherwise.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a misadventure around the Kyle Rittenhouse Legal Defense Fund, with funds finding their way into other things. So I think where these guys can get in trouble is, and then I'm obviously not the attorney, so the least sage voice of the assembly here. But my understanding is if you give money to one of the legal defense funds that turns around and funds something political, and so it's sort of a cloaking mechanism, at least in some states you can get into trouble. I think we have seen people kind of wash their money through these.
What are the? Let me bring on Jeff. Did that help you at all, honey?
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you again.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find someone who's an expert on this, and I'm going to bring them on. Okay? Because really because the money that you raise when you run for either house of Congress, the upper or the lower house, if you retire, all the money in your campaign fund goes to you personally. So, I mean, there's that. It's all of that. I mean, and it lets you know the political nature of all of this, because when they said that Congressman Jackson took this money and took these moose heads, these were items that he had purchased for fundraiser. And the fundraiser just started getting a little crazy. So he said, let me just keep them in storage until we have another fundraiser, because it was a golf tournament and a comedy roast. And so there's that. But when it came down, we said, okay, if there's anything missing, my family said, we want to restore it. The government did not want anything back. They just wanted him to go to prison. That was it. So we said, so you just wanted to go to jail. Oh, okay. All right, got it. So just want you to know that the political nature of all of this. Okay, sweetie.
Thank you so much.
You're very. Oh no, thank you. Let me get Jeff up before we go. Jeff, what's on your? Oh no, not Jeff, but Robert. Robert, what's on your mind?
I just kind of want to comment on the nature of the conversation. Mm-hmm. You commented that everything is a mess, and Professor Wolf commented that all the institutions of government are a mess, mm-hmm. and that corporations are gouging everybody. I think there's a simpler way for the left to start to talk about this, and I've been doing this in my monthly book club, is the source of all these things are a direct result of the economic system that we never talk about and rarely talk about. That's capitalism. Capitalism has always operated to I got the most and you got the least. And until we can, as a society, openly and vigorously talk about how capitalism operates, how it relied on the massive colonization of this country and then the enslavement of people, until we can do that, we're going to keep fiddling around with these institutions, meaning the courts, the legislature, and the executive branch, and nothing's going to get done except what we all see.
Well, Robert,
the wealthy get what they want.
Robert, stay right there, because, you know, you're talking to a descendant of people who were considered chattel. We were not considered human. We were brought here to do work. I mean, and not for free, just unpaid, on land that was stolen. Mark, let me give you a minute to do this before we get out of here. What do you think? I mean, because, you know, Robert is trying to push an honest and earnest conversation. Robert, don't leave. Please stay right there. Mark?
I will, yeah.
Is Mark still there? Okay, well, Dr. Wolf. I mean, he's like, you know, we need to have an honest, forthright conversation about.
I agree that those conversations are important. I do, I do think there's a range of performances under capitalism too, though. So there's sort of two different parallel conversations. Should we have the deeper systemic conversations? Yeah. Should we not be afraid of them? Yeah, we shouldn't. Should we maybe progress beyond the point of name calling people who are interested in other systems? Yes. We should probably also have working definitions for people to understand what is capitalism, right? I think for some people, capitalism is wealth and progress and the application of science to production, which I think most people think is interesting, right? And for other people, it's a system of sort of wage slavery and class suppression, which is not desirable, right? So I think functioning definitions of these terms are probably important too. But I think there's two conversations, both worthy, and it's a good point. So one is, does the system undermine some of the system's stated goals? Equality of opportunity, ethnic and racial equality, gender equality, shared prosperity, true democracy, right? Very worthy conversation, more or less been outlawed in the United States for 100 years, right? And there are some consequent damages to that, right? That are not minor, okay? And then there's another one, which is if we do live under capitalism, which we largely always have in the U.S. and do now, right? Then what kind of capitalism do we want to live under? I think they're both interesting. They're both important. But yeah, I think obviously.
Can I interject just a second?
Yeah. Okay, Robert, I've got about 30 seconds. And if you don't mind, could you stay with us just a little while after we get off the air? Because we still want to speak to you fully. 30 seconds belong to you, Robert.
I'll see if I can. I'm on my way to work. See, the thing about equality of opportunity, it can't exist if there's inequality of condition. And that has to do with property. That has to do with the essence of what capitalism does, is it seizes in all property. So until we get beyond this sort of naive Disneyland view of our society and start to examine from an inductive reasoning perspective exactly what's going on, we will continue to go down the same path, and it will degenerate, and the empire will collapse.
But you know,
so
Robert, we
have
talk
to
about
be
that.
Capable.
We talk about that on the show. All the time.
Oh no, I know. Yeah. We have to be capable of like saying that maybe capitalism is just a stage in the broader arc of civilization, and that's all it is. And it's coming to an end, and we have to start to realize like things. I heard a discussion on Tom Hartman's show about an area in Europe, I think it might have been Holland, where they limit how rich somebody can be. They say you can't make any more than $50 million in a year. If we were to even begin to talk about things like that in this country, the capitalists would blow up. That would probably be illegal speech. They would go to great extent to stop any conversation like that. I think that would show people.
No, but they do that all the time. Today. I mean, but this is what happens all the time. These are subversive conversations. Yeah. That's why charging Trump under the Espionage Act is very interesting and a little dangerous. I think Attorney Jones can speak to that, because they charge people who blow up the status quo. They don't charge people who are corporatists. That's not what they do.
Right.
And so we have to be real clear on what's going on here. I think that's why there are a lot of questions.
I want you to stay with us just for a hot second. I know you've got to run into work, but I want the panel to be able to speak to what you're saying before we go. Henry, thank you for a great show. All of my morning stars. Okay, just stay right there a hot second. I love you, everybody. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless you. Hey, everybody. Okay, but Attorney Jones, are you there? Okay, well, Dr. Wolf, why don't you speak to him?
No, I understand his point. I think that is hard, but worthwhile to come up with a definition of capitalism. And I think the kind of newer, more advanced study of economic systems, which I was just fortunate to go to a graduate school that probably is more focused on this in its economics doctoral program than I think any other in the world. It's kind of where you go for that. Look, I think that in a society, in any given moment, there are actually multiple economic systems operating, but a dominant one. So in the United States, there are instances in which the way things are produced is actually a slave system of production or a feudal system of production, right? Maybe most famously, a sort of traditional American household is a feudal house arrangement with the male as the sort of prototypical, doesn't have to be, but the male is the prototypical master and the kind of lord, and the wife as the serf. And in fact, most people don't know this, but the marriage vows that you recite in a traditional marriage are the fealty vows of a serf to a lord, to have and to hold, to honor in sickness and health and poverty and wealth, right? That is actually the old British fealty pledge of a serf to a lord. The woman does the part of a serf, the male does the part of the lord, right? So that kind of operates. We have slavery, we have owned, trafficked people, right? Or we have a dominant situation too, a dominant sort of way of organizing production, which might be capitalist. I think one of the things that most people would agree on, where the two debates about system versus how a particular system is operated, is the for-profit system doesn't seem to work that well in certain important areas, like child care and medicine and transportation. Right? And so in those places where folks are willing to have those debates and relax the assumption that the profit motive is always the best and only, then you can find your way to having an education system that's not run that way, a transportation system that's not run that way, a medical system that's not run that way, and a parliament that's not run that way. We haven't had those conversations. And so we don't have a medical system that's run with the goal of public health and humanities. We have bits and pieces of it, but not coherent. Likewise, our political system is not really about votes. It's about fundraising and then votes and then fundraising, right? So it's sort of tainted or mixed, not necessarily bad, depends on what you believe, right? Likewise, the transportation, right? I think the other thing I would say, which will probably be upsetting to a lot of people, is there isn't a universal guide. It's a choice. But you can't ask people to make a choice without presenting options and educating them about those options. And we don't present options and we don't educate people about the options. And that kind of makes the choice to neglect.
And here's what I think this is why I think it's so dire. See, I've heard recently Biden and even Kamala Harris announce out of the clear blue, no one asked for this during any of these political campaigns. They announced that they are capitalists. That's how destructive the state of affairs are, because the Democratic Party struggles to separate itself from the doctrine, the economic doctrine that is at the root of all oppression in this country.
No, but they don't struggle. But no, with all due respect, they don't struggle because they're with it. See, remember, both of these. I'm saying we're on the same page here. I'm saying to you, Dr. King absolutely pushed against it, and it's something I've studied, and it was something. He was a person my father and mother worked for, and this was looking at the destructive aspects of the system in which we find ourselves. But the fact is, we have a uni-party, and we have a status quo that protects us. America was always, Robert, a business project. And we're loath to discuss that. We should discuss that on the show all the time. Right. And I think that what is helpful is when you're at the water cooler at work, is when you continue When you take this conversation that you're having with us, take it into the workplace, take it into your social space. Yeah, because when you do that,
and that's what I'm hoping in your listeners that are kind of relying on politicians. And maybe that's not your best path. Say what's on your mind, because then people will see there's other people that think like you. Because what the right wing does, it's loud, and it makes people think that no one else thinks anything different than that. And what people on the left got to do, start getting a little loud. Get loud. Say what's on your mind. It doesn't have to be perfect. We know what injustice is. We know what justice really is. And when people are starving to death in this country, when people are roaming around the streets unhoused, that's what the problem is, and that's what's inexcusable, and that's what we've got to start to say. And stop pretending like as if everybody's a right-winger. They're not. They're just loud. They make more noise is all they do.
Well, and look,
we need to get just as loud.
And, I have to be honest, I think that we need to be as active. You don't have to, because, I'm a musician. So, everything loud ain't should not be heard necessarily. I think what we have to do is get active and organize. My friend Kevin Gray, our friend Kevin Gray, Dr. Wolf, who made his transition in March. I hear him in my ear right now. Organize. People organize, Robert, and the so-called, well, not only the corporate and the right-wing media, they organize. They have talking points that they disseminate. When Rush Limbaugh was alive, and all of and Sean Hannity and all the hosts, they have them, and they pound it in, day out. People, we have to get organized, and we also have to decide whether we want to fundamentally change the system. Everybody doesn't want to change the system. Many people just want the opportunity to get that corner office. They don't want to fundamentally change the system that disadvantages most people. Most people don't want to open wide the gates to opportunity. They just want to get in themselves. And it's sad to say, but it's just been my experience. And so, I'm hoping that that we can, like you said, I think that we will go a long way by being honest about how we got here, why we're here. And we need to have a decision we have to have a discussion and then come to a consensus about where we need to go. Are you okay? You okay?
Yeah, I got to go into work right now because my boss is looking out the window.
You get the last word.
Do what Santita says.
No,
talk about
do what Robert says.
Yeah, just go out there and talk to people. Just say this stuff to people. They'll get it. They catch on to it right away.
That's what I
do. Just be calm, cool, and collected, and listen and work with people over time, and it'll sink in.
That's I gotta go. I love you, sweetie.
Let's keep Robert employed here.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not sure you always want to blow in late and then start screaming revolution. That could be a risky combo.
What did he say? No, my boss is looking at me. I'm like, okay. I just didn't want to cut him off. But what's your final thought, Dr. Wolf?
Well, I think it's an interesting point. I think that, look, when things get taken off the discussion agenda, like basic economic organization, it does a lot to suggest that those are settled matters, right? And that we've made a choice, and that's it, and the kind of debate ends and the conversation ends. And so rhetorically, when you stop talking about something, it's hard to not stop thinking about it. It's hard to not sort of take it off the menu of what people contemplate as a solution. So I do think that's correct. In terms of the massive systemic change ideas, I think they're super valuable. I think the irony is most people are living in a pretty tight situation to sort of not fall, to get through the day, to get through the week, to get through the month, right? And in that moment, you probably have to attach some immediate relief to big long-term ideas, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least show how they're related. Because if you're one of the 15 million people who's looking at possibly losing their health care, who already can't afford their life, or a person who thought maybe they could swing it with a little student debt relief, who was told they got it and is now being told maybe they didn't get it, your life can be pretty quickly thrown into the kind of turmoil where getting your boat back to the shore has to come before everything else, right? Stabilize, assess, advance. If things are unstable, it's hard to assess or advance any of your kind of basic goals, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense.
I think maybe something comes before organizing, as much as I agree, and obviously would love to honor those poignant points by Kevin, whose loss I think we all feel he's a good guy, and very smart, very wise. And I think those are different, smart and wise, and he was both.
Yes.
But I also think people have to be willing to take the huge risk in today's America to believe that it could be better if they work with other people. I don't think you can start to do the work of organizing unless you believe it can get better and you can be part of it getting better and you can work with other people to make it better. I think when people start to think that things can get better and that they can work with people to make it better, their chances of organizing are pretty good. And I think part of the reason we don't have much of that is that people don't think, and we're not taught, and we don't hear our history ring that way, that when common people can work together with an agenda, that they can win, right? That there is hope here. You can work with other people. I think you have to believe in that to go through the difficulties of organizing and struggling. And I think that's a precursor. And I think when you lose that precursor, the rest can kind of fall away a little bit. My fear would only be that I don't know if people think that works or that they can be a part of it. And I think that makes it very hard to get together and organize, which is always hard. Exciting, thrilling, engaging, but hard. But if you don't believe it's possible, it's real hard to do something like that.
Well, I think that's why something as, we've laughed about it, but when you say keep hope alive, that's a big deal. Because really having people to understand that, no, you can do this, you guys. You really can. Victory is yours. A whole new society is within the realm of possibility. Just really helping people to understand that is a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. And we have to. I
think if you lose it, it's a big blow.
You don't have anything else but hope for the possibility of something else until you get there.
I think unfortunately you do, right? You have the sort of, you look inward, you might be more likely to develop a substance problem. You might have a hard time connecting to other people, right? So unfortunately in the absence, things do happen. Stuff does grow there.
Yeah.
But, maybe not the stuff you want, right? But all kinds of things grow in the dark. They might not be your favorite, but all kinds of things grow in the dark. Something really is growing.
Something's always. Now that's the truth. That's the truth. Well, so what do you want us to look at it over the next few days?
I mean, to me, I think the debate. So obviously, I'm a bit odd. I tend to have a structural view of things like that. So that's just declared as fair. But to me, and this will be a weird, whether the guy gets indicted or not, whether he gets convicted or not, it's actually kind of not that interesting. Okay. The process by which we choose whether or not to indict someone and what to indict them for and the way the public understands it is interesting. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not so much interested in who won the game by how many runs, right? That's a little bit less exciting to me. So the question is, okay, I take for granted, and I know it's just not everyone believes this, but I think it's pretty clear that the former president has committed routinely multiple felonies as a basic course of life and business, right? So what causes him the trouble? Where does he get in trouble? Where does he doesn't? Where does he not? Is an interesting social litmus test.
Mm-hmm.
What people choose to believe from him and not believe from him tells me more about them than him, right? Because I think we all kind of know that elites break the law a lot, and that's part of the reason that people fight so hard to be an elite, to break the law.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they don't all break the same laws. They don't break the laws to the same degree. And not all elites break the law, but it's not so uncommon. So what you get in trouble for and what the public thinks is important, that's the real story.
Well,
right?
Yeah,
that's the real story.
Well, I mean, because it is so political, and I mean, and that for me has always been, that's been the rub, that this is not, that it's just not pure. And that's been my frustration. So, I hope that we will begin to ask the tough questions and come together and remain hopeful.
And my rule of thumb as an economist is if you're hustling condos that you didn't build, steaks that you didn't make, bars you didn't make, in casinos, the chance that you never told a lie is not interesting to me. It's not even fun parlor game.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. But but that's who we honor in this society. Someone who works hard. We say you come from a good family if your family is moneyed, not if they're loving, if they're moneyed. So we have a lot of self-examination that we must undergo in order to get ourselves together. Because as long as you have money, it's all right. And that's not true. It's just not true. It's not true. You can't continue to commodify life. In fact, you can't commodify life. Life is a gift. And it comes from, for those people who are atheists or agnostic, it comes from the universe. You don't quite know where, it's a mystery. For a person of faith like me, it comes from God. And anyway, it doesn't come from you. How about that? And so you owe it to the world, because we are stewards of this world, to make the world not a better place, make it what it's supposed to be. We're but a thought away from making sure that every human being is clothed, housed, and fed. Everybody's not going to be wealthy. No. But should everybody have their basic needs met, their fundamental needs met? Yes. Should everyone have the opportunity to actualize themselves? Absolutely. And government should not be business.
No one is too generous or interdependent. No one is self-generated.
Nobody.
Right? No one has either the blamelessness or the blame of being self-generated, right? So I think we have this sort of what moment create, like how did Donald Trump get to be president, right? How did Joe Biden get to be president, right? Those are interesting. Those are more interesting to me, much more interesting to me, like in terms of figuring out how these things happen and what they tell us about America. That's much more interesting to me than which one won which election, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who are you? Why are you? I remember when Reverend ran for president, Dr. Wolf, he would say, people want to know what makes me run. You need to know the house I'm running from. I've had to be better because I've had to run faster, harder. I've had to leap over higher barriers than you. So, it's, but it's okay because that stretched him and shaped him in a way that, otherwise he might not have been shaped. That having been said, look, everybody, we have to make some decisions about not, my Uncle Mickey, when he was at the hospital, the doctor said, we're going to make you better. He said, no, then give me my clothes and let me out of here because I'm here for you to make me well. Not better. Oh, I don't want to get better. I want to get well. I want to be right. So
before I leave, I'll tell you something that I learned in my life that was big deal in my family. At least we wanted to believe this, and most of the things they saw me, I have come to realize are probably not true. So I don't believe all of them. But this is what I think is true, which is the abuse you survive can become your superpower if you can master it. And if you can take a hard look at your coping mechanisms so that you don't spend an adult life trapped in the coping mechanisms that let you survive your childhood. The things you survived, if you can come to terms with them, can be your superpower. I do think that's actually true. And that means that the most afflicted communities can produce the most superpowers in many cases, ironically, right? And this has been known in philosophy for a long time. It's said probably better by somebody else, as is often the case, but that's what they used to call the master-slave dialectic in German philosophy, which is the slave is less enslaved by the system of slavery than the master. The master is the slave to slavery.
That's right.
The slave can be the master of a post-slave society if people can learn and that's a big if, right? If people can learn the lessons, right? So, I mean, to me, intellectually, that's sort of hopeful, but I do think we are often missing the sense of our own agency and hopefulness here among the communities that would need to organize. And I think that makes things hard. And I think you see when people don't have that, for whatever reason, when they're not afraid to hope and work on something, they often do well, even if it's not as well as we want. I mean, if you look at the Parkland shooters or the kids who come out of one of these tragedies, sometimes they push faster for gun control than all the politicians and activists and think tanks did in 20 years, in 6 months, having just been gunned down in school.
Well, my great-grandmother, who was unlettered, unschooled. She couldn't even write her name. She could barely write an X. She said, as long as the bad things that happen to you, the hard things, she said, as long as the hard things that happen to you don't happen in you, you're going to be all right. Because you really don't, she said, don't get bitter, get better. I said, oh. She used to say that when I was a little girl, and oh boy, it's just what we've been saying. The things that we always find that the things that bedeviled us really are our crowns. They are. But, the tendency is for all of us to get bitter and to repeat the cycle of abuse. That's why, we've got to stop, everybody.
And the healthy society helps us heal, and an unhealthy society helps us hurt, right? And
that's right.
That is the context. I apologize, but just like Robert, I'm going to face workplace reckoning if I don't switch to a different call. But thank you all for your time and insights, and hopefully I wasn't at least can meet the Hippocratic standard of conversation where I didn't make you worse off from your understanding of anything for your time with me today.
Well, I just love you, and I'm always so glad and privileged.
Very mutual.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's also very elite because it's not an opinion anyone else shares, so I appreciate it.
No, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. But you're just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person, and I just don't know anyone finer. I just adore you, and God bless you. Sending you much, much, much love.
Likewise. Thank you. Talk soon.
God bless you. And God bless you, everybody. Morning Stars, sending you so much love. Tracy, one day I hope that you do call. It seems that you want a lot of attention, bless your heart. And you should get it. But one of the things that we have to be careful of in cyberspace is this. You talk out, but you don't take anything in. You said you don't call because whatever reasons you don't call. You should call, and you should engage. And I hope that all of us will begin to do that. We need to engage. We need to engage. We need to engage one another. That's why I invite you to the convention, July 15th to the 19th, because we need to see each other. We need to talk with one another, and not just talk about each other and talk at each other, rail against each other here. I wish I could give each of you the attention. I mean, because boy, you are here and clearly you want a lot of it. I wish I could give you more, but I can't. That having been said, bring something constructive to the conversation and call in one day. Call in one day. We'd love to hear what you have to say. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And people may agree, they may disagree. But whatever it is, don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid to share. Because just shouting out, that's the easy thing. Engaging is the tough part. And I say that to everybody. To everybody. Engaging is the tough part. And if we're going to grow as a society, if we're going to grow as people, we must engage each other in respect, in love, and with the intention of getting better and of getting right. Oftentimes we just want to tell someone off, and that says more about you and where you're coming from than it says about me or anything else. Because that's not where I'm coming from. I don't just want to make a point. I want us to get well together. As my grandmother Helen used to say, bless her heart, she said, honey, I'm not well myself. So, and I'm with you, Mike. Stop talking and act. Act. But talk, engage, act, think, read, get involved. I love you, everybody. God bless you. I can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless.